Carl Jung. The lies you tell yourself. The most dangerous liar in your life knows your passwords, your history, your tenderness, and your fear. They speak with your voice. They look back at you from a mirror that never argues. What if the person deceiving you most isn't an enemy, a politician, or an ad, but the face you trust without question? Listen to the small sentences you repeat. I'm fine. I'm over it. I don't need anyone. I'm the reasonable one. It wasn't that bad. I forgive. I forget. I move on. They sound like virtues. They smell clean. They make life frictionless. But somewhere under your ribs, a door trembles, and something behind it keeps breathing. Carl Jung would ask you to stand still long enough to hear it. Not to shame you for lying, but to show you that the lies you tell yourself are not moral failures. They are survival myths you inherited to make life bearable, useful, until they become a prison. Jung did not begin by accusing you of hypocrisy. He began with a picture, a house with many floors. On the top floor, bright with windows, we keep the furniture of our conscious life. Our job titles, our opinions, our jokes, our haircut decisions, our political identities, our tidy stories. On the ground floor, we have the everyday moods, the fights in the kitchen, the slightly too loud laughter, the carefully balanced calendar. But beneath that, a staircase leads down. Fewer lights. The boards creak. Down there live the things we learned not to say. The parts of us we wrapped and stored because they scared our parents, our teachers, our friends. Jung called that basement the shadow, not because it is evil, but because light hasn't reached it yet. You can live for years upstairs and call it honesty. You can curate a life of good opinions and nice routines and smile in photos with your head tilted to the correct degree. You can be sincere, but sincerity is not the same as truth. Truth includes the rooms you don't enter. The shadow has its own heartbeat, and if you forbid its speech, it will find other ways to talk. In dreams that won't leave you alone, in sudden overreactions that embarrass you, in the faces you pick as enemies, in the bodies you fall in love with as if possessed. The lies you tell yourself function like polite notes taped over doors. Do not enter. Jung's warning was gentle and terrifying. What you don't make conscious will direct your life, and you will call it destiny. He saw the masks we wear and refused to mock them. He named them. Persona, your social face. The version of you that negotiates group life, the agreeable mask you develop to survive the tribe. The persona is not false. It is adaptive. It gets you through interviews and weddings and parent-teacher conferences. It is the costume required to act on the stage. But when the costume grows tight and you mistake it for your skin, you begin to suffocate. The lies begin as stitching. I'm not angry, just principled. I'm not jealous, just discerning. I'm not afraid, just pragmatic. 1,000 tiny threads sew an identity that cannot turn its head without tearing. Jung, who fell into his own private underworld and came back carrying armfuls of images, would point to your dreams. He would ask, not as a mystic, but as a doctor, what the night tells you when you stop performing. He would ask about the recurring animal that keeps visiting, about the house with the locked door, about the stranger who speaks in riddles, about the river you can't cross. He would listen not for content alone, but for pattern, for symbols that begin to arrange themselves into a map of where your lies are thickest. The culture around you rewards those lies without malice. Social media is a hall of mirrors where persona is currency. Offices promote the reliable mask, even when it quietly starves the person wearing it. Families develop scripts. The strong one, the kind one, the smart one, the funny one, the peacemaker. Children volunteer for parts and then forget they auditioned. What begins as safety becomes a sentence. You might have learned to be the rescuer, the one who anticipates everyone else's needs. It looked like love. It was also a way to avoid needing. You might have learned to be the skeptic, the one who never gets fooled. It looked like intelligence. It was also a way to avoid vulnerability. The lie isn't entirely false. That's what makes it so hard to leave. Jung's word for the mind's splintered pockets was complex. Not just I'm complicated, but clusters of memory and emotion with their own charge, their own gravity, small inner persons that take over without asking permission. You know this when your body reacts before you do: heat rising, breath shortening, a sudden impulse to flee or fight, and your mouth starts saying things you didn't plan. Afterward you say, I don't know what got into me. A complex did. These are the places where the lie and the truth wrestle. Your persona says, I'm easygoing. Your complex says, touch that old scar and I will become a storm. The lie most people love is that we are in control of ourselves because we are thinking. It dignifies us. Jung humbly suspected the opposite. He learned that we are lived by forms older than us, archetypes, patterns that move through myth and dream and story. That set the stage for our personal dramas before we have words. He suggested that even our nobility can be possession. A hero possessed by the hero will destroy his family for a cause. A mother possessed by the mother will smother her child. A lover possessed by the lover will confuse worship with intimacy. We prefer to call these convictions. He called them gods returning to us in modern clothes. The first and loudest lie you tell yourself, then, is that you know who you are. It is a compassionate lie. It lets you function. Jung whispers a different beginning. You are more than you can admit and less than you pretend, all at once. Between those lies waits a life you have not yet met. The question that will carry us through is not, how do I stop lying? The question is, to whom am I lying, and for what was the lie originally trying to protect me? The answer is not a confession in a bright room. It is a lantern and a long walk downstairs. There is a woman who describes herself as the calm one. In every crisis, she brings tea, softness, solutions. People praise her steadiness. She rarely cries. At night, she dreams of wolves tearing the curtains down. When she wakes, her jaw aches. One morning, she snaps at a barista because the oat milk is wrong. She apologizes 6 times and hates herself the rest of the day. The lie she tells herself is merciful. I don't get angry. The truth is, she made a covenant in childhood to keep the peace, and her shadow took the rage and fed it until it grew a pelt and a howl. There is a man convinced he's detached, rational, not swayed by feelings. His bookshelf is an altar to analysis. He sneers at sentimentality. He says he's above drama. His girlfriend leaves because he never fully arrives. He tells himself she wanted too much. A month later, he messages her at 2 a.m., drunk and weeping. He says he doesn't know what came over him. The lie he tells is noble. I am objective. The truth is an old fear curled at the base of his spine. If I need, I might be left. So he decided not to need. He fell in love with thought because thoughts don't leave rooms. His soul, meanwhile, knocks on the pipes at night. There is a preacher of positivity who talks about vibrations and attracting abundance. She is luminous on camera. Her followers adore her gentleness. She hasn't visited her mother in 3 years. She says boundaries. Her ex-husband says she weaponizes spirituality to avoid apology. When a friend challenges her, she smiles and says, "You're projecting." She is right and wrong. The lie she tells is sophisticated. I am beyond the petty. The truth is, the trickster archetype has borrowed her voice. What she calls transcendence is often escape. Jung would not call these people bad. He would call them unfinished. He would call the lies they tell themselves attempts at balance that went hard and brittle. And he would warn them about enantiodromia, the old Greek word he loved, the running of one thing into its opposite. Extremes tend to flip. The impeccable caretaker becomes neglectful. The ascetic becomes a secret addict. The moral crusader is caught in scandal. The rebel becomes authoritarian. The more violently you deny a part of yourself, the more likely it is to burst through wearing the mask of fate. The wolf eats the curtains in your dream because you starved it of meat in daylight. Complexes are autonomous. That is Jung's cold gift. They act like people inside you with their own agendas and memories, triggered by certain faces, smells, phrases. The mother complex doesn't check your calendar. It takes your mouth during a conversation with your boss, and suddenly you are a child apologizing for existing. The father complex writes your resume in capital letters and sends you climbing ladders you don't even like. The inferior complex whispers you're a fraud, and you start sabotaging the very success you begged for. You wake up later and call it bad luck. The lie. The world is against me. The truth. A splintered piece of you tried to protect you with an old rule that no longer fits. Projection is how the shadow learns to walk in daylight without showing its face. The angry person who insists they are the calm one notices only other people's anger. The manipulative person who insists they're authentic sees manipulation everywhere. The one who refuses to admit to envy becomes a connoisseur of other people's undeserved advantages. It is a law of the psyche. What you refuse to hold, you will see at the end of your finger. We build enemies to house our disowned life. We fall in love with people who carry our unlived parts. The spiritualized call this chemistry. The cynic calls it pattern. Jung calls it projection, and he uses it as a clue. He advises, what irritates you irrationally is a map. What fascinates you irrationally is also a map. There is a polite family where the word no is an offense. Everyone is kind. Everyone is exhausted. They tell each other the lie. We're just easy. Underneath, resentment piles up like unwashed dishes. Holidays are a ballet of avoidances. Passive aggression becomes the household dialect. A granddaughter starts cutting her hair shorter and shorter. She is called rebellious. In fact, she is performing the family's shadow. A no that can be heard with eyes. There is also the opposite. A family that worships toughness. Tears are taxed. They tell themselves the lie. We are resilient. They call softness weakness and love discipline like a god. The first time the youngest son falls in love, he panics at the sweetness and picks a fight. He doesn't know how to hold tenderness without turning it into a contest. His persona is a shield. His shadow is a garden he's never watered. Archetypes stalk our living rooms. The mother can be devouring or divine. The father can be guide or judge. The trickster trips you right where you are proudest. The hero conquers without noticing the bed at his feet. The victim gathers attention like coins. The savior refuses help because his identity needs you to need him. These are not just roles we play. They are forces that seize us. When we lie to ourselves about which one currently has the wheel, we drive like sleepwalkers. Jung's warning isn't moral panic. It is weather forecast. Storms come. Know which wind is blowing. The suspense builds quietly. The longer you perform a single self, the more pressure mounts in the basement. The lie thickens. This is who I am. The dreams get louder. The relationships become more dramatic. You get promotions you didn't actually want. Your body protests with symptoms you treat as enemies. You keep trying to fix the world because you do not want to visit the spare room where your shadow sits holding a box, waiting. Inside, it are all the sentences you swallowed. Inside, it is a person you will not like at first, because they remember what you agreed to forget. Jung will not smash your mask. He will ask whether you'd like to be more than one mask. He will not shame your lies. He will insist you name them with tenderness and precision. You do not have to confess to everyone, but you must stop pretending to yourself. Because the next part is coming, the part where fate, tired of knocking gently, blows through the window. The part where the life you didn't live begins to live you. Here is the reversal that quiets the room. Your lies protected you. That is why they worked. The persona you built was a good solution to the problem of being small in a house of large moods, of being different in a school that distrusted difference, of being sensitive in a culture that punishes softness, of being hungry in a family that performed abundance. You made a mask to breathe. Jung's compassion shelters that fact. He refuses the cruelty of ripping it off in public. He offers instead a craft, individuation, the art of becoming the person whose center lies deeper than any mask. Individuation is not self-improvement. It is not optimizing morning routines until your calendar glows. It is the slow, honest work of knowing which parts of you have never met. It starts with a ceasefire between the mask and the basement. You stop calling the shadow bad. You stop calling the persona fake. You treat them like siblings forced to share a room. You make introductions. That introduction can happen in many languages. Dream work, drawing, writing, therapy, prayer, walking alone by water. The precise attention of a craft, practiced until your hands think for you. The method is less important than the attitude. Curiosity without flinching. Jung's toolkit looks strange because it respects meaning where modern life sees noise. A dream in which your childhood home collapses is not random. It is a sentence your soul couldn't say by day. Active imagination invites you to sit with the figures from your dreams, to write to the wolf, to ask the old woman what she wants, to let your pen answer for the stranger who visited your sleep. It is not acting. It is conversation. You are not making it up. You are making room. If this sounds mad, remember that your current method, pretending these figures don't exist, has been running your life from the dark. Withdraw projections. That phrase is a doorway. It means this. When you notice a disproportionate reaction, intense hatred for a stranger, worship for a lover who hasn't earned it, assume you've hung a coat on someone else that belongs to you. Take it back, not by demanding they change, but by asking, what beloved quality of mine have I exiled? What despised quality of mine am I seeing enlarged? This is humiliating. Good. Humility is the antidote to possession by archetype. You disarm the gods in your bloodstream by dropping to your knees and naming your limits. Complexes shrink when named gently and precisely. I have a mother complex that panics in authority's presence. I have a savior complex that sabotages. Intimacy. I have an inferiority complex that makes compliments feel like traps. Speak them out loud to a witness who won't punish you for your honesty. Speak them to yourself in a room with a closed door. The naming loosens the grip. The grip never disappears. That's not the goal. The goal is to grow a center that can say to every sub-personality, I see you. You cannot have the wheel, but you may speak. The self, in Jung's language, is not your ego with a gym membership. It is a center that includes and transcends your conscious I, the root that grows toward wholeness. It speaks in symbols that feel old. Mandalas appear. Circles and squares. Quaternity. You find yourself doodling shapes you don't understand. You long for meaning that isn't a slogan. You begin to sense coincidences that feel like choreography. Call it synchronicity if you like, or call it attention-finding pattern. Either way, as the lies loosen, the world brightens in uncanny ways. Not because magic appears, but because you stopped editing your life down to what your persona could handle. Anima and animus, the inner feminine of a man, the inner masculine of a woman, are not stereotypes to be performed. They are relational energies that need recognition. A man who denies his tenderness becomes a brittle tower. His shadow is a collapsed bridge. A woman who denies her assertiveness becomes agreeable rage. Her shadow is a sharp, secret mouth. When we refuse these inner partners, we project them onto others. We choose lovers to carry our unlived qualities. We then punish them for it. He adored her intuition, and then called her irrational. She admired his force, and then called him controlling. Individuation invites you to take back your projections and meet the inner other you have been outsourcing. Your relationships, relieved of the burden of completing you, may begin at last. Enantiodromia returns, but now as medicine. Rather than waiting for your oppressed qualities to burst like pipes, you invite them to dinner before they flood the house. You, the endlessly calm, invite anger to sit and explain itself. You, the rationalist, sit with grief until it teaches you a grammar thought never learned. You, the healer, admit you're lonely. You, the rebel, confess you want someone to tell you what to do sometimes. This is not confession to become small. It is confession to become complex. Complexity is heavier, but it carries farther. Jung's work with alchemy was not an eccentric hobby. It was a language for internal transformation. The Negredo, the blackening, is the stage where the old identity rots. You feel lost. You are tempted to rebuild the mask quickly. Don't. Stay in the dark long enough to see. The albedo, the whitening, is clarity without inflation. You begin to notice where you do and do not have power. The rubedo, the reddening, is embodiment. Blood returning to your face, life lived with the knowledge of its depth. You cannot fast forward these seasons without paying interest later. The greatest lie about lies is that we can fix them by force. Jung insists on a different posture. Apprenticeship. Your unconscious is not a swamp to be drained. It is an ocean with currents older than your nation. And if you learn those currents, you can navigate. You will not be captain every day. Sometimes you will be washed ashore, coughing. Sometimes you will row. Sometimes you will float and watch a hawk. The point is not mastery. The point is conversation. The soul wants to be spoken with, not reorganized like a desk. Slowly the world you hated becomes a teacher. The irritating coworker who lectures you on details. A mirror for your own sloppiness you haven't admitted. The ex you keep demonizing. A diary of your unmet needs and boundaries. The job that deadens you. A question about whether your persona is starving your gifts. The illness that slows you? A ruthless Sabbath. You do not have to romanticize suffering to learn from it. You do have to stop lying that you are above it. The most adult sentence Jung hands you is small and metallic. This is happening. The next sentence is a door. What does it want me to know? There is a grief that arises when you realize how much of your life you arranged to make others comfortable. It does not announce itself with violins. It arrives as a weight behind the breastbone at a red light when the radio is off, and you cannot distract yourself with the ritual of checking your phone. You see the childhood version of you, vigilant, keeping the atmosphere smooth. You see the young adult version, excelling at roles, rewarded for invisibility. You see now, in the glass, a human with a tired smile. And you whisper, without drama, I lied, not to harm, to survive. And the tears that come are not for punishment. They are for mourning the years the truth waited in a locked room. The hardest part of Jung's path is not analysis. It is mercy. Mercy for the part of you that betrayed you by hiding you. Mercy for the part of you that kept you alive by hiding you. Mercy for the people who loved your mask because they didn't know any other way to love. Mercy for the parts of your family that would have panicked if you had told the truth sooner. Mercy does not mean you go back. It means you stop crucifying yourself on the thought, I should have known. You could not have known. Knowledge ripens on its own calendar. Jung's wordless, patient waiting through his own descent, the long nights with the red book, the dialogues with figures no one else could see, were not indulgence. They were the price of refusing to pretend. The unlived life makes a sound. It hums. You hear it when an old song finds you in a grocery aisle, and you stand, stunned, between soup and cereal. You see it when someone else takes a risk you recognize as yours, and you feel the bitter ache of admiration, twisted with envy. That ache is not accusation. It is invitation. The self you did not choose does not vanish. It lingers as potential, tapping your shoulder whenever your lies grow too tight. Sometimes it knocks you down. A divorce that looks like disaster becomes the only honest thing that could have happened. A career collapse becomes the first day of air. The persona dies a small death. The person breathes. There is a couple arguing in their kitchen about dishes, and nothing they are saying is about dishes. The woman believes she is the responsible one. The man believes he is the misunderstood one. They have lied to themselves for 10 years, and the lies were courteous. Now the child upstairs hears the porcelain break. If either one could say the true sentence, I am terrified you will leave me if I stop performing, or I am so angry I made myself a servant, because that is what love looked like in my home, the room would melt. They would not be cured. They would be in the room where curing is possible. Jung does not promise happiness. He promises reality with meaning, and meaning is a heat that winter cannot steal. Descent feels like failure. It is not. It is the only route to a new floor plan. Myth knew this. The night sea journey. Inanna hung on the hook in the underworld. Jonah inside the fish. Psyche sorting seeds. Christ between the thieves. The gold is guarded by a dragon for a reason. The dragon is you. The fire is your own. The treasure is the quality of presence you gain when you stop lying. It is not glamorous. It is the ability to sit by a sickbed without reaching for platitudes. It is the strength to say, I don't know, and mean it. It is the refusal to blame when blame would be a relief. It is the welcome you give to your own fear without asking it to wash its hands first. You will lose people. Some loved you as a mask. When you stop smiling on command, they will call you selfish. When you stop rescuing, they will call you cold. When you say no, they will call you cruel. If you listen to Jung, you will not retaliate by calling them names in return. You will grieve them. You will also notice new people gathering. They are quieter. They ask different questions. They will not require a performance. You will feel awkward around them because they keep making space for your truth, and you don't yet know how to fill it without apologizing. This is growth's embarrassing middle. Spiritual inflation stalks the path. The moment you learn a new word shadow, projection, complex, your ego will try to wear it like armor. You will diagnose others to keep from seeing yourself. You will post long threads about boundaries while using them to punish. You will call your cruelty truth-telling and your avoidance self-care. Jung saw this too. He would ask you to drop the glittering sword and look down at your shaking hand. Humility is the only stable ground. The more you descend, the less you shout. The body participates. Your back pain is not a metaphor you invented. It is a narrative your tissues wrote. Your insomnia is not simply blue light. It is also an alarm from your psyche that you keep pressing snooze on. Somatic honesty is Jungian without needing the word. Walk. Breathe deliberately. Let your breath be ugly. Let your face finally arrange itself the way it wants. Allow tears to leave salt on your mouth without lacing them to a speech. Sit with the symptom as with a guest. Ask it what it has to say. You will sound ridiculous to the success voice in your head. That voice has kept you sharp and miserable for years. Then, the first sunlight. It won't be fireworks. It will be a morning where you don't bargain with yourself before rising. It will be a conversation where you tell the truth a little earlier than usual and the world doesn't end. It will be laughter that surprises you by its depth. It will be the ability to look at a person who hurt you and say, "I won't pretend anymore," and then walk away without turning them into a villain. It will be going home and sitting in the room you avoided, and the shadow sits beside you and does not bite. It only points to a box. Inside are photographs of you you've never seen. You are at a piano you abandoned. You are building something in a garage. You are holding a small hand you were afraid to hold. The unlived life looks back with no accusation. Only possibility still on the table. Jung's kindness is a hard kindness. He will not let you use "that's just my shadow" as a permit to be cruel. He will not let you call your latest affair following the anima if it's just compulsion and lace. He will not let you declare yourself an old soul to avoid apologizing to your child. He asks for grown humanity, bearing what is yours, releasing what isn't, allowing what's dark to inform your light, refusing to confuse intensity for depth. He offers a gift in return, a life in which you are not at war with yourself all day long. Stand in front of your mirror tonight and watch your eyes when you say, "I'm fine." There is a flicker. Do not punish it. Follow it. Ask the question that unlocks basements. What am I unwilling to know? You do not have to answer in sentences. Your body will answer anyway. Your dreams will begin to change when you treat them like letters rather than spam. Your arguments will shorten when you stop prosecuting and start confessing, not to be pure, but to be accurate. Accuracy is how the soul loosens her jaw. Name one lie, small, not grand. "I'm not angry" becomes "I am angry." "I'm over it" becomes I am not over it. I don't need anyone becomes I need. I'm just busy becomes I'm afraid to stop. Say it to a piece of paper. Say it to the dark. Say it to a person who has earned that sentence. Watch what shifts. Not fireworks gravity. Your day gains weight. You feel less like a hologram performing competence and more like a weather system moving through. Jung wasn't selling a method. He was inviting you to inhabit your own climate, fully enough that fate no longer has to shove you around to get your attention. Notice your enemies. Choose one. Ask, what disturbs me beyond proportion? Not the reasonable critique, the disproportion. There, under your finger, is a piece of your shadow wearing someone else's face. Thank it for the revelation and take it back. It will feel like swallowing a bone. Drink water. Walk. Rest. The next time you meet them, you may still disagree. You will be less possessed. That difference is the wideness Jung calls freedom. Return to your persona with tenderness. You still need it. You will still go to meetings and funerals and weddings. You will still nod in grocery halls. You will still hold your tongue in rooms where the truth cannot be held without breaking the furniture. The difference is that your mask will breathe. It will know it is a mask. At the end of the day, you will take it off without trauma. You will sit with the person underneath like lovers who have forgiven each other without forgetting. There will be nights where nothing helps. The underworld doesn't publish a schedule. You will lie awake and think you are failing. You are not. You are being rewired at a depth that has no language. Trust the slowness you hate. Jung would sit beside you and say little. He would not fix you. He would offer a pencil and ask you to draw what the night looks like. He would look at your crude shapes like they were cathedrals. He would point out a detail you missed that makes the whole picture make sense. Individuation is not a one-time confession. It is a way of traveling. If you are lucky, something larger than your career and your image begins to move through you. You become impossible to flatter. You become hard to manipulate. You are not quick to label other people's storms. You laugh in a way that tells the room you have seen things and remain available to joy. You forgive without pretending you weren't wounded. You look at the person you love and see a stranger you will spend your life meeting. You look at yourself and feel the same. The lies you tell yourself will not disappear. They will grow shy. They will come to you for blessing instead of sneaking out at night. They will ask, "May we keep you safe here?" And sometimes you will say yes, because safety is not the enemy. You will learn the difference between a protective story that buys you time and a story that has expired. You will stand, sometimes, in front of the old house in your dream and notice a door you've never opened. You will open it, stairs go down. Of course they do. The air smells like earth. You take a breath. You begin again. Jung is not a saint to be worshipped. He is a traveler who left notes on the trail. Some of his notes are wrong for you. Some are perfect. The point is not to become a Jungian. The point is to notice where your life thins and to stop cooperating with the thinness. History will not remember your inner work. The people who sleep beside you will. The children who learn to tell the truth in houses where you told it will. The enemies you stop needing will. The body that stops bracing will. You will. Tonight, the mirror will be a little kinder. Not because you improved, because you stopped selling yourself counterfeit light. You stood with your weather. You let the wolf in the dream put its head in your lap. It did not kill you. It licked your palm. It asked for meat. If this opened your eyes, subscribe to Boring History, because the truth is never boring.